Hello everyone! Today I am going to be talking about how to make more time to do the things you really want to do. I recently read an amazing book called Make Time by Knapp and John Zeratsky, and it was a really simple way of making the most of your days to do projects you've always wanted to do, to spend more time with your loved ones, to spend more time doing a hobby, just really making the most of our day-to-day lives to make progress with the things we really want to do. I definitely feel like each day I'm so busy, I don't know how I can fit in time sometimes for doing the things that I want to do. And this book really tackles how to get off the busy bandwagon and make the time a priority for the things you want to work on. Make Time isn't generating time out of nowhere, it's more reclaiming back some of the time that you use in the day. And a lot of this time where they try and claw some back for you actually doing the things you want to do is by taking time from some of these time sinks that we find ourselves in, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and using that time to focus on the projects or hobbies or people you want to focus on. They really address the concept of the busy bandwagon, and that is this idea that in society today, being very busy is seen as a good thing, and it's seen now as a mark of productivity. But that's not always the case. Sometimes we can be really busy with a little less meaningful tasks and they take up the entire day. And it really would be better to focus our energy on less tasks to get more done. Another point they make in the book is about technology. Now, both of the authors worked at Google, one also worked at YouTube. And so they are very on board with using technology. But we are in this sort of conundrum now where we have amazing tech that can help us, but the same tech can also really hinder us with making progress in certain areas of our lives, because there are certain apps on our phone which are good if used intentionally, but not so good if used unintentionally. And these are what they call infinity pool apps. Apps where when you go to the top of the feed and refresh, there's new content there. And this means that you could stay on these apps infinitely. You could stay on them forever because there's always new content to entertain you. So the authors really stress that these apps, when used intentionally, are good, but a lot of time is sunk into them with unintentional purposes, and reclaiming some of that back to do what you actually want to do could be really beneficial to you. The book is centered around a 4-step process for making more time for yourself to do these projects or spend time with people, etc. These 4 steps are highlight, laser, energize, and reflection. And I'll get to what exactly those are in a minute. But by using this 4-step method every day, you should be able to make progress with the things that you really want to in your life. They really emphasize as well in this book that this method does not require perfection, that perfection is just another shiny object to distract us from what we actually want to do. And they also say that you need an everyday mindset for doing this 4-step process, to treat every day like a new trial. The book is packed with loads of practical advice and practical tips, and I really loved it because they're so easy to implement because there's so many of them. But because there are so many of them, the authors say that you should really try and fine-tune which of these actions work best for you, and then if you trial each day what worked, what didn't work, you can then craft a sort of perfect 4-step method which is tailored to you. So the first step in the 4-step process is to highlight, and a highlight is what they describe as picking a daily focus for each day, because it's daily. I know if you have a really long to-do list like I do, picking just one thing to focus on is a bit like, I don't even know where to start. But I actually have been doing this unintentionally throughout writing my thesis. I started to pick one thing each day that I was like, I definitely want to get this thing done. And it really helped me to make progress, because as I had that focus, I could get the task done that I'd set myself, tick it off the list, and then move on to other things. But the days weren't blaring into one as much, and I was like, oh, today I did that thing and felt really satisfied with it. This daily highlight can be anything you want. The authors suggest it should be something that is either satisfying to you. So that could be if you're working on a side project to write a book, you could write a chapter of your book or 1,000 words of your book. That would be really satisfying to get that done. It could be something which is urgent. So in work, you might have a presentation the next day. So getting that presentation done could be your highlight for the day. or it could be something that brings you joy and just makes you really happy. And that could be if you are trying to get better at painting, you could have your highlight for the day to sit down and do some art. So it is really up to you. There are loads of methods in the book of how to select your highlight. For me personally, I select mine on the weekend from Monday to Friday, and then each day I adjust as I go if I need to. So mine are normally around my PhD at the minute and also side project work, and I pick one thing to be my focus for the day. The authors say in the book, the highlight should be a task which takes between 60 to 90 minutes. So not the entire day, but a nice chunk of the day where you can focus on that task. And the method that they recommend using to make sure you make time for your highlight in the day is time blocking, which is my favorite way to block my calendar. I have a whole video on how I use time blocking to make sure I get things done. So they say to block where your highlight will be in your day as the very first thing you do, and then around that block in all of the other things. Obviously, if you have events which you are committed to, like meetings at work, etc., then put those things in first and work your highlight around these committed tasks. But really scheduling in your highlight and making that a priority each and every day should see you make progress with the things that you really love in your life. The next step is laser. This is about enhancing your focus during the highlight, and this section is packed with loads of tips on how to increase focus. Our brains aren't very good at multitasking. In fact, our brains task switch. So instead of doing two things at once, our brain will go from one task to the other. Now, there have been some studies out there which describe the delay between switching between tasks in the range of minutes. So if you are doing some work and then you check your phone, even if you check your phone for a few minutes, it's thought that it takes a few minutes again to get back into the work you were doing. So over time, this can really build up to a large amount of time. So a lot of the techniques in this section of the book are about breaking distraction to get that laser focus. Some of the techniques they recommend doing are to switch off most of your notifications. So I've switched off all of my social media notifications and just check the app when I need to shut the door when you're working, because that creates a boundary between you and your workspace and the external influences, especially when working from home. Shutting the door is really, really important for me. They also say you can work with a timer. They also say to time your email checks throughout the day. So instead of having your emails open all the time, have checks at certain time points. So for me, I don't check my emails till about 10:30. I then check in just after lunch and then around 4 o'clock. And I answer all my emails in those 3 batches. I know this really varies depending on where you work and the expectation of you answering emails, like the time frame in which you have to answer them. But even if you just check them once an hour, once every half an hour, and close down the emails the rest of the time, this can probably help you not be as distracted. And something else they recommend is to start the day without social media. So if you are getting up early to do work, you get up and do work without looking at other people's problems or achievements or anything else like that, and putting yourself in that sort of reactive mindset. The third step here is to energize yourself, and this is really to again enhance your focus when you are working. And this section of the book is really interesting. A lot of the work is focused on trying to act like our ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago and use the techniques or use the actions that they used to do to power our days today. I really like the emphasis as well that they say you are not just a brain, because this is very true. Your brain is just an organ. I think many of us, myself included, put a lot of emphasis on our brain as, you know, the most important organ in the body, but it's not. There are so many other organs. So by powering your body, you will also power your brain as well. Some of the techniques that they recommend you doing is getting out and walking. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors used to walk miles and miles each and every day. And now that a lot of us are working from home, I hardly get up to a few hundred steps at the minute. So I'm trying to make an effort to go out and walk. They also say to exercise each day, which might sound like a lot, but the technique they say in the book is to not be a hero and just do 10-15 minutes of exercise, short HIIT workouts or a short run. And this means that you are powering your body and really clearing your mind. Another thing they recommend to do is to eat like our ancestors. So eat foods which aren't as processed. So instead of relying on sugar to get that energy boost and then a crash, having things like fruit and nuts throughout the day to power you through is better to keep your energy levels up constantly rather than having this huge spike and then a drop. A technique which can also help to energize you is to fake the sunrise and sunset. So if you are living in the summer at the minute, the time zone you're in will have very, very long days, meaning that when you're going to sleep, it's more than likely going to be light outside. If you can get blinds which block the sun, that's great, or just wear a sleep mask to ensure you're going to bed at the same time every night. And in the morning, if you are in autumn and winter where the days are much shorter and the mornings are really dark, to fake the sunrise, so to switch the light on or use one of those alarm clocks that glow and have a fake sort of sunrise simulation to them to make sure that your rhythms are the same each and every day. And something else which they really emphasize is to time your caffeine intake very, very carefully, because caffeine is a great tool to give you energy if you drink caffeine. I know not everyone does, but if you have caffeine too late in the day, it can really impact your sleep because the half-life of caffeine is, I think it's 5 hours or 4 hours, meaning that after 4 or 5 hours, the amount of caffeine in your system after having that cup of coffee is at half. So if you're having a cup of coffee at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, then by the time you're trying to go to bed, there is still caffeine in your system. So timing your caffeine appropriately is also something which you can use to energize your day. And the final part of this 4-step process is to reflect. And they say to try and do this daily, or you could just do it 3 days a week, especially in this sort of trial and error period where you're trying to fit in all these different little tips and actions, to really reflect on what works for you and what didn't. So you should be writing down what your highlight was and if you managed to get to it, and then write down the techniques that you tried throughout the day to increase your focus and to energize yourself. Make a note of what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and then what you're going to try doing the next day. If something has worked really well for you, then you can try that the next day again, and you can just keep repeating it. If you find going for a 10-minute walk at 10 o'clock is really useful for your focus, then you can do that each and every day. And then you can play around with some of these other techniques in the book. I think there's 87 different tips in the book, so there are so many to choose from. And over time, you should be able to craft a day where you get to focus on your highlight and that piece of work or that quality time that you really love to do and really want to do, and also feel energized throughout the rest of the day as well. So that is the 4-step process in the book. I'm trying to do these things now. Like I said, I've already sort of been doing a highlight, but now I'm actually on my to-do list. When I write down my highlight for the day, I put like an asterisk next to it, so I know that is the main focus of the day for me, and I schedule it into my calendar. So I hope this video helped you, and if you want to read the book, I would highly recommend. But I think I'm going to try and do more neuroscience productivity book review videos, because I read a lot of these types of books, and I think it's good for me to share what I learn in case any of you find it useful. And it's also good for me to sort of bring everything together and understand the book in a short little way. I don't know what I'm saying. So if you want more neuroscience-based book reviews, productivity-based book reviews, and neuroscience-based productivity and mindset tips, then subscribe to the channel, or you can catch me over on social media, and I will see you next time. Bye.